Ants are known for their insane ability to work together to accomplish impossible tasks. So I was wondering what would happen if I put my 1,000 ant colony up against a natural disaster. Would they actually be able to stop and survive them by working together?
Well, that's exactly
I personally think they will survive.
why I gathered up 1,000 ants. And I have the 5 coolest
That's a
natural
lot of
disasters
ants.
planned, starting with the most iconic, an earthquake. Yup, ants, I went out and bought a realistic earthquake simulating platform that if I go and press this
They are surviving an earthquake 10 out of 10 times. That's
button
a
or whatever on top starts to shake so much, which recreates a real earthquake. Oh, dang.
But what I'll actually be putting on here is this 2D ant nest and filling it up with the 1,000 ants, of course. Basically, these ants will dig out tunnels along the glass like my last ant
And
video,
they will
but throughout that
collapse.
process, the earthquake machine will lightly go off to gently collapse the tunnels while the ants are digging. That way, I can show you how ants evolve to survive earthquakes in the wild, and if they pass, they move on to the more interesting disasters.
Ants rule the world. If there was one animal that can survive all natural disasters, it would be ants. So ladies and gentlemen, let's find out what happens when you put 1,000 ants versus a natural disaster. Let's get into it.
Now, as you could probably imagine, the ants wasted no time to get to work. Ants are so tiny, and while a single ant would basically be able to make no progress whatsoever, when you have a 1,000 ants, things are done at an insanely rapid pace, as workers started picking up grains of sand along the glass, so each tunnel could be full. It's so cool to see time-lapse footage of these tunnels being made, because they...
How is it that the illustration is the exact same as what's happening right here? How is it?
Each tunnel could be formed. It's so cool to see time-lapse footage of these tunnels being made because they literally dug out this entire amount of sand in only like 6
They're
hours.
connecting
So I'm wondering what's
everything.
gonna happen to these tunnels when I turn on this earthquake machine.
Now, I started by turning it on the least powerful setting.
Okay, it's shaking super slowly. Now, it's my goal to make sure not a single ant is harmed in this video. I just want to show you how insanely smart they are and how they will overcome all...
How can you ensure that not a single ant is harmed when there's 1,000 ants right there? Yeah. This is an educational video. I guess
is harmed in this video. I just want to show you how insanely smart they are and how they will overcome all these disasters in the wild.
But even this very light shaking was definitely felt amongst the colony. The workers along the top area immediately knew something was off, and they started frantically running around, as you can see. And when we take a look down under the nest where all the tunnels are, you can see those ants were acting similarly. Ants know during earthquakes, their tunnels have the chance to collapse, so all of them were being extremely careful. Very interestingly enough, in this room,
how are they aware of their surroundings that much?
here, many of the ants were gathering up on the walls of the room to add an extra layer of support so it wouldn't collapse. But of course, when an earthquake happens in the wild, a part of the nest is bound to collapse, so it wasn't long until this happened. A bit of the sand here started to fall, completely blocking off this tunnel. I immediately turned off the machine to make sure the ants wouldn't be too stressed out while they had to commence a rescue mission. Because as you can see, while most of the ants were able to squeeze out, like this guy here, at least one ant was partially trapped in this collapse.
There's a rescue mission.
It looked as though one of the ants was already picking up some of the sand from the collapsed portion to clear it out. And yeah, literally so quickly, the ants excavated the entire collapsed tunnel enough
Leave no one behind. That's the rule.
to where it was a perfectly functional area to walk through again. And funnily enough, some of the ants even started to walk in and slowly dig out the area where the sand had just collapsed from to make a new tunnel there.
Wow, the ants just completed this natural disaster. They are so smart. But the natural disasters are designed to get more interesting as the video goes on. So next up, we got a sandstorm. Yes, ants.
One
you heard
natural
that right, and this
disaster
will be taking place in the separate desert enclosure.
Yes, we need to have a separate tank so that way I can make this sand blow around like crazy to replicate a real sandstorm.
And along with this blow dryer, I've also got all these fans that clamp to the walls.
Okay, a sandstorm, they're surviving a sandstorm without a doubt. You know, a sandstorm can at least, or the most damage it can do is to displace them. There's no way.
And I can just set up to constantly blow the ants back.
For the ants to be able to pass this disaster, they're gonna have to do something like grab onto each other's bodies or something to be able to push past this intense wind. And if they can make it to this canyon, climb up it, and make it to the Terra Green Leaf Bowl, then they're gonna get a ton of seeds, which is their favorite food.
Alright, let me just hook up this tubing
would have known?
so. And the ants should start coming. Let's go.
Yup, and this tubing is set up so once an ant enters the disaster, they can't get out. That way, we'll progressively get to see more and more teamwork as time goes on. Now, immediately, you could see these first ants just kind of thought this was a normal desert as they were walking through it, but quickly, I brought out my mini sandstorm fan, and I started to blow. Immediately, the ants started to feel the wind pressure pushing them back, and were suddenly not able to walk forward. Some even lost their grip and got pushed back a bit. And as more ants entered the desert, you could tell the sandstorm was keeping them all stuck to the left side of this enclosure.
Yo, this little mini fan is fire for replicating a sandstorm. But no, this is where it gets interesting, because now that they know a sandstorm is brewing, how are they gonna figure out how to get to these seeds? Well, let's see.
While most ants kept trying to just walk forward and getting blown back, interestingly enough, many of the ants were gathering up in this back area here near the sticks. And many of them were actually starting to climb onto the sticks. You see, the fan doesn't really blow ants back if they're walking on sticks, since there's just so much of a better grip on there. But yeah, the second they climb off and stand on the sand,
Who would have known that wood would be our enemy in such an incident? The world is ending, and ants need to be erased. And then, wood is on the side of ants.
again, they'll get blown back, as you can see. But the ants were starting to learn that they needed to stay on the sticks. So many started to gather up and march towards the right side where all the seeds were located. In fact, this ant was making it dangerously close to the seeds using the stick method. And well, he was able to make it to the little rock canyon and almost was there to the seeds.
Oh my gosh, this ant climbing right now.
He won't make it to the surface.
I'm blowing this fan max speed on him and he is just stuck to this rock.
And as I let my guard down for literally 1 second, this dude made a dash for the seeds, literally running straight towards
They won!
He made it in. And he looked so happy to have gotten those seeds. He was just dancing around in there.
Yo, this ant is crazy.
They won!
Time to blow him back when he got up into this area.
Since the ants passed a disaster, I gathered them all up and
2 out of 5. But I'm not sure how many are still coming, but they survived without being... What?
put them back into the nest. And I gave them the food prize, which of course they started to take down into the nest over the next 5 minutes.
But ants, I'm not gonna lie, this natural disaster was kind of easy to pass. If we
No,
really
it
want to learn
wasn't.
about how ants survive, well, we gotta go to our third natural disaster, a flood.
Yup, and as you can see, I built another custom tank where the flood...
Like, some ants or some insects have the ability to walk on surface or the surface of water. So I'm not sure if ants possess such incredible abilities. Let's find out.
is going to be getting
I have
simulated.
faith.
I know there's no water yet,
faith.
but you'll see how quickly that changes. For now, all you gotta know is if the ants make it all the way to this leaf ball, they'll once again get rewarded with tons more seeds.
These ants have no idea what's about to hit them. Let's connect this tubing so these guys can start walking in.
Quickly, the ants started to make their way in. But before the ants had any time at all to take in their surroundings, I had to...
By now, I'm sure when these insects see that tube, they're like, it's time for a challenge. Let's go crash it.
activate the flood.
So to make the flood happen, I gotta go down here to this little bucket, plug it in, and then out the end of this tube, oh yeah, water, oh shoot, water's coming out. Okay, I just gotta carefully, oh, move that over there, oh, okay. There we go.
Similar to real life, floods will block off paths for ants while they're trying to travel, so this is exactly what that recreates. And the ants are gonna have to find a way to pass these gaps using the objects I've provided for them. As you can tell, the ants in here...
They are supposed to solve problems. How problematic are ants?
find a way to pass these gaps using the objects I've provided for them. As you can tell, the ants in here immediately were a little confused on what to do. Many were gathering up near the water edge, inspecting what the heck just happened. Some even fell into the water, but don't worry. Any ant that falls in, I'll be rescuing and bringing back to the start so no ants get hurt. But also, many of the ants were actually sort of gathering around the objects I had placed in. And as I left my camera recording, I was extremely amazed by what I saw happen. Out of nowhere, this feather started to slightly move. And as I kept watching watching, it
The
slowly started
strength.
nudging around more and more. There must have been an ant underneath, and this ant was genuinely moving the feather closer and closer to the water.
It's these
until
two
literally,
guys.
like magic, it was moved almost entirely in, and an ant crawled out right from underneath as soon as that happened.
Oh, it was a coordinated attack.
Was genuinely moving the feather closer and closer to the water until literally like magic, it was moved almost entirely in, and an ant crawled out right from underneath as soon as that happened.
No
Dang,
way.
This guy must have been helping move it.
Yo, these ants are absolutely insane. I don't know what ant just moved this feather into the water, but dang, I mean, let's just see what they do.
It took a couple minutes, but eventually a couple more of the workers started to step onto the feather and started to walk across it.
They
Of course,
made it
make it
through.
to our second platform. Now, unfortunately, the ants got to do the same exact thing here. Sorry, guys. I know you already did it once. But to my surprise, the ants literally wasted no time to start gathering
They
around these
figured it
feathers
out.
directly in the area under them. And while it took a couple hours, eventually my camera caught this same exact thing happening. The feather slowly inched towards the water.
I feel like what's helping the success of these ants is that they are equally dumb, you know, and us as humans, we are not equally dumb. So that puts us in a situation whereby we spend more time debating and arguing about the solution rather than finding the correct solution, you know.
Until, well, it had made a bridge across almost.
Let's go ants. Now I did help them a little bit by just moving the feather up onto this platform, but for the most part, they actually were moving those.
And yep, it didn't take long till our first worker stepped onto the final platform and climbed up into the leaf dish to claim their seeds.
All right,
Easy,
well done,
man.
little
Easy
ant.
peasy.
And here is your guys.
In case or in an event of a flood, these creatures are going to find a solution to fight against that flood or to survive through that flood. Because I know that even if the world is flooding, not every tree is going to get flooded. You know, some tree that's on top of a mountain somewhere is going to survive, leading or ensuring the survival of ants, or ants that are trapped inside the mountain are going to survive. So there is no wiping these guys out.
This reward. Well, guys, if you want even better food, you're gonna have to complete this next natural disaster, which is a blizzard. And guys, this is gonna be happening in
A
next.
blizzard.
Yup, this blizzard will be taking place inside of the ant nest, so we could study how ants handle the
That is, like, I know that ants rule the world, but do they rule the North Pole or polar regions? Let's find out.
cold in the wild.
Now, obviously, I can't just go and dump a ton of snow on them. That would totally just freeze them all. Instead, I've actually got some ice cubes, which I'm gonna go and just plop on this.
Let's go.
Which, as you can see, this makes a nice little makeshift snow that on my laser thermometer is approximately -Celsius degrees.
I started by sprinkling a super tiny amount of this ice on the ant nest to see how they'd initially react, and interestingly, well, not even a single ant cared at all. Yeah, this ice just melted completely into the sand. Since the ants weren't affected by that, I decided to up the amount of ice I put in, which should give us a reaction to how ants handle the cold in the wild. And this time, the ants were actually a bit more interested in the ice, with some of them even crawling on top of them. But the most fascinating thing I had noticed was how much the ants had started to slow down their movement since the start.
Thankfully, all the ants are doing just fine still, but if you look very closely, these ants, for the most part, have slowed down so much. I mean, look at how slowly some of them are.
Oh, like, I was confused for a moment trying to figure out what's going to happen, because I know that ants, if they heat up too much, they're going to lose all their surface, or all their blood or water or moisture, something like that, leading them to die. So I was wondering, in case of what happens when you put them in the opposite situation, you know, like instead of extreme heat, extreme cold, they just slow down. Makes sense.
Moving.
Yup, this is one of ants' special abilities. Because in the winter, when it starts to snow and the temperature drops drastically, the ants are basically biologically built to start moving slower.
So it's a superpower. to preserve more heat or something like that.
That way, they can conserve as much energy as possible and go hide deeper underground.
So yeah, in the wild, they would dig even deeper and all
Dangerous.
the ants would relocate to under the nest. I don't want to put any ants at risk, so I'm going to very carefully take out all the pieces of ice so this place will warm back
Let's
up to
go.
the proper temperature.
And once the tank was warmed back up, I'd say the ants are now ready for their final natural disaster.
Oh, it's the
which
final
this time
test.
is a zombie apocalypse.
And I'm not going to lie, this is probably going to be the most interesting.
How do you introduce a zombie? How do you introduce a zombie apocalypse in a ant farm? Impossible.
To watch, because I've got 3 different types of insects that in a way is going to represent a zombie apocalypse.
Now, our first insect prey is, well, zombie
Come on.
grasshoppers. Yes, these are grasshoppers that
These
peck
are
those
their
cells that are
favorites.
literally like half decomposing and meant for feeding animals. And I'll be bringing them back to life and moving it in front of the ants to see what they do.
And to make the ants swarm this even more, I'm gonna dip some of it in this brown sugar water. And yeah, this is gonna
Nah,
make it
they are
too
gonna
tasty.
go
Without
nuts.
further ado, let's get this in here.
Now, immediately after dipping this in the nest, I started to do a really good, accurate job of moving this around to act like it was alive. And I think the ants were falling for it because you can see they quickly started to climb all over it. And if you also look closely, the ants were actually grabbing onto this thing with their insanely strong mandibles, and they were
Oh,
injecting
come
their
on.
venomous stingers into it. Which is kind of unnecessary. This thing is
It's
already
already
long
dead.
gone. But I guess I'm just doing such a good job moving it around that they think it's actually a real zombie grasshopper.
Okay, you guys are doing a good job attacking this. I'm just gonna leave that in there for you while I
This is what would happen. Like if you tried to storm ants, they would swarm us too, and we are dead ultimately.
get this second insect ready.
And yeah, they start to absolutely devour this grasshopper. But anyways, our second insect food is this. They're called wax worms. And they're a
Wax
staple
worms.
food for ants because of how squishy they are.
But yeah, they just look so weird. So that's why I'm
my
putting them in
God.
the zombie apocalypse section of the video. Let's go ahead and add these guys in.
I decided to put this first wax worm on top of where all the ants were still located around that grasshopper.
Oh
And
my.
the ants almost instantly recognized the prey.
They are going
and
to break it
amazingly,
down.
They knew exactly what to do. And they took this dude straight down into the tunnel system where it wouldn't even stand a chance to fight back.
Oh my gosh, that was like 3 seconds. And now this worm is literally nowhere
What?
to be seen. It's probably in the tunnel system. Dang, that's actually kind of impressive, ants.
So I dropped the other 2 wax worms inside, and once again, one of them instantly got pulled down into the tunnel system.
No way.
And this one started to get swarmed. After the ants had a good grasp of it, they literally brought it over to these hills in the back, which eventually the worm was then brought down one of the holes on that hill. It's so cool, because if you
Is it crazy that I was looking forward to that animal being picked apart just bit by bit?
You guys didn't even realize the ants have turned these hills at the back into an extra place for more tunnels on the back. And we can literally see the worm down under these tunnels as the ants get their protein from eating it.
Wow, amazing job, ants. But our final zombie apocalypse food is flightless fruit flies. But I'm gonna be dumping so many on the ants, so it's like a proper zombie apocalypse movie with how many zombies there are, even though, yeah, these aren't zombies.
Yeah, these are flightless fruit flies. And if you didn't already know what they are, well, they're
No, they are doomed to die. I know what they are. They are flies that are doomed to die.
Yeah, these aren't zombies.
Yeah, these are flightless fruit flies. And if you didn't already know what they are, well, they're flies that can't fly. It's always so funny to me to say this in videos, because seriously, like, how are you a fly that can't fly? Come on, bro.
Okay, anyways, I got about 100 of these flies, as you can see. So, let's dump this zombie apocalypse on these ants. Oh, yeah.
Now, as you can probably
Oh,
imagine,
it's going to be a
dumping this much
massacre.
prey on the ants activates their predator instincts a lot. Because instantly, so many of the ants started to become way more frantic. They started to run around like crazy to try and catch
It's a
these little
stampede.
flies. Now, I mean, it's pretty obvious the ants aren't going to struggle with eating these flies because they're literally so much smaller. And quickly, I started to notice lots of the ants with these little flies in their mandibles. Yeah, I bet these are tasty.
Well, ants, you've literally survived floods, earthquakes, and so much more. So, I'm gonna...
My bet paid off, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I'm going to like and subscribe to this guy's channel, but if you enjoyed that reaction video and you would like to see more ant content, you know what to do. You know, return the favor, like and subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Let's do this again some other time, man.